There's a thought in your head right now. Maybe it's about something that happened earlier today. Maybe it's about a conversation from 3 years ago that still makes your stomach turn when you think about it. Maybe it's about tomorrow, next week, or some hypothetical future that doesn't even exist yet. And the strange part? You didn't ask for this thought, it just showed up. And then it brought friends. If you've ever spent an entire evening replaying a single sentence someone said to you, analyzing it from every possible angle, wondering what they really meant, what they think of you now, and whether you should have responded differently, then you already know what this video is about. But here's the part no one talks about. Overthinking doesn't feel like a problem. It feels like intelligence. It feels like you're being careful, responsible, thorough. It feels like the mature thing to do. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Because while you think you're solving problems, you're actually creating them. While you think you're being deep, you're actually drowning. Let's talk about why. The first pattern most people never notice is this. Overthinking disguises itself as preparation. You tell yourself that if you think through every possible outcome, you'll be ready for anything. You'll never be caught off guard. You'll never be hurt. But what actually happens is that you rehearse pain that hasn't arrived yet. You suffer in advance. You live through the rejection before it even happens. You experience the failure while still standing at the starting line. And your body doesn't know the difference. Your nervous system responds to imagined catastrophe the same way it responds to real danger. So by the time the actual moment comes, if it ever does, you're already exhausted. You've already been through it 100 times. Preparation becomes pre-suffering, and you call that being smart. The second pattern is quieter, but just as destructive. Overthinking becomes a way to feel in control when everything feels uncertain. If you can understand why something happened, if you can figure out exactly where things went wrong, then maybe you can prevent it from happening again. But life doesn't work that way. Some things don't have neat explanations. Some people leave without giving you closure. Some failures aren't lessons, they're just losses. And when you refuse to accept that, when you keep turning the same situation over and over in your mind, searching for an answer that doesn't exist, you trap yourself in a loop that has no exit. The need for certainty becomes a cage, and thinking becomes the lock. The third pattern is something you might recognize in the way you talk to yourself. There's a voice in your head that never stops evaluating you. It reviews your performance after every social interaction. It critiques your choices, your words, your silence. It asks questions like, why did you say that? And what were they thinking when they looked at you like that? This internal dialogue feels like self-awareness. But it's not. It's surveillance. It's a courtroom in your mind where you're always on trial and never acquitted. Real self-awareness brings peace. It helps you understand yourself without judgment. But this constant mental monitoring doesn't help you grow. It just makes you smaller. It makes every room feel like an auditorium. Every conversation feels like a test. Every silence feels like a verdict. The fourth pattern is one that hurts to admit. Sometimes, overthinking becomes part of your identity. You start to see yourself as the person who thinks deeply, the one who notices what others miss, the one who can't just let things go because you care too much, feel too much, analyze too much, and in a strange way, you become proud of it. But this identity keeps you stuck, because if thinking deeply is who you are, then letting go feels like losing yourself. Simplicity feels like betrayal. Peace feels like shallowness. So you stay in the maze, not because you can't find the exit, but because you've convinced yourself that being lost is a sign of depth. The fifth pattern is one of the most painful. Overthinking often comes from a desperate need to be seen as good, smart, or worthy. Every decision gets filtered through the question, what will they think of me? Every action becomes a performance. Every word becomes evidence for or against your value. This is exhausting, because now your self-worth depends not on who you are, but on how well you predict and manage other people's perceptions of you. And here's the part that stings. You probably learned this early. Somewhere along the way, you learned that love was conditional, that approval had to be earned, that making a mistake meant losing something important. So you became hypervigilant. You learned to think 10 steps ahead just to feel safe. Overthinking wasn't a flaw. It was a survival strategy. But the problem is, you're still using it even when you don't need to survive anymore. The sixth pattern reveals itself in the way you make or don't make decisions. You tell yourself you need more information, more time, more clarity. You weigh every option until the options lose all meaning. You ask for advice, then doubt it. You make a choice, then immediately question it. This isn't wisdom. It's fear wearing a thinking cap. The real problem isn't uncertainty. It is your fear of making a mistake. You have tied your identity so tightly to not making mistakes that every decision, every choice, feels like it must be absolutely right about your intelligence, your worth, your future. So you freeze. And in refusing to choose, you choose anyway. You choose stagnation, anxiety, and the slow erosion of trust in yourself. The seventh pattern often goes unnoticed because it looks like empathy. You spend enormous energy trying to figure out what other people are thinking and feeling. You replay conversations trying to decode their tone, their pauses, their subtext. But here's the truth. Most of this is projection. You're not reading their mind. You're writing a story about their mind and then reacting to your own fiction. And that story usually isn't kind. It's filled with judgment, rejection, disappointment, things you fear, not things you know. You torture yourself with narratives that exist only in your imagination, and then you wonder why you feel so disconnected from the people around you. If you want to shed your masks and connect more with your essence, subscribe to my channel. The eighth pattern might be the hardest to accept. Overthinking becomes a way to avoid feeling, because as long as you're thinking, you don't have to feel the grief, the loneliness, the fear, the anger. Analysis becomes anesthesia. But emotions don't disappear because you ignore them. They just go underground. They show up as tension in your shoulders, as sleepless nights, as a vague sense that something is wrong even when everything looks fine. Your mind tries to protect you from pain by staying busy, but in doing so, it keeps you from ever truly healing. Here you are. For years, you believed that overthinking was a virtue. You learned that it made you understanding, attentive, intelligent, and responsible. You learned that it meant you cared more than others. But the truth is, overthinking hasn't been protecting you. It's been exhausting you. It's been keeping you from rest, from joy, from presence. It's been stealing the very life it claimed to be improving. And the invitation now isn't to stop thinking altogether. That's not possible, and it's not the point. The invitation is to notice, to catch yourself mid-spiral and ask, is this helping me, or is this just familiar? To recognize that you can be thoughtful without being trapped, that you can care without catastrophizing, that you can let a thought exist without building a monument around it. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who notices them. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to be a little gentler with the person doing all that noticing. If this video helped you be more yourself, like the video. And now pause for a minute. Just breathe. Don't try to understand anything. Just breathe. You've thought enough for today.